Well, I've been thinking again, and I was thinking about my step grandfather I call Paul Maxwell. Lived down in Alvord, Texas. Alvord is just a little stop between. Well, it ain't even a stop, but it's got two-lane concrete running right through the middle of Alvord, connecting Wichita Falls and Fort Worth. And my grandmother and her husband, called my step grandfather, Paul Maxwell, they moved into town there. And these folks are sharecroppers. You know, they never had anything. And along comes the 50s, and they got him a little television set. Paul Maxwell had a television set. Had one of those 17-inch size, you know, the set. And he was old and kind of crippled up and couldn't hardly get up. Had a bad hip and a crutch, and he used to sit. Went down there one time, and he was sitting there and had that 17-inch right up black and white. Of course, the TV antenna up there with tinfoil and everything. Somebody told him if he could get tinfoil up on, he could pick up Fort Worth. Now, Fort Worth it was another 50 miles on down to Fort Worth. Now, that's a long way to get TV picture back in the 50s, early 50s. And it was snowy, and on the front of it, he had those little drop-down panel, you know, that used to have with a little bitty knob about the size of the end of a school pencil. Brightness and vertical and horizontal and contrast, and I noticed that he'd already took that panel off or broke it off something, and just the knob sticking out down there, and each one of those knobs was wrapped with adhesive tape until it was twice the size, bigger than your thumb then, instead of a little pencil. I asked Mom, I said, what's it put adhesive tape? She said, the old man puts 50 miles a day on those things, twisting them, you know, and he just getting blisters on all of his fingers. So I put adhesive tape on in there. Well, Paul Maxwell wasn't too technically up to date, you know, and so one day, it was my pleasure to take things down and show them to my grandmother, because these folks were, you know, they were just not up to things going on in the real world. They knew about picture shows and stuff like that, but they never did go see one. Didn't have any Alvoid. They didn't have transportation. Anywhere they went, they had to walk. Anyway, so I'm taking slides and stuff like that. I had made a trip to Houston, and I decided to give them a slideshow one time, and I got them in there in one room, but the whole wall was just white, painted white. I don't think they had wallpaper, just painted white. And I got my slide thing showed up, and I started showing them slides of these are colored slides. Ooh, color. Paul may have heard about color, but he didn't have, you know, he barely had black and white Ghost in there on that TV of his. So I showed him these color slides, and I said, now this is my trip when I went to Houston, and I took these pictures of some fancy houses. We may be moving to Houston, and I wanted to know where we're going to live. Of course, we're not going to live in these fancy houses, but I just took those pictures so you could see how really nice places, you know. And I was busy talking about them, and I even took some pictures of some new houses that we might move into. And all of a sudden, Paul Maxwell said, he's sitting over, hadn't said a word. And all of a sudden he said, "Hey, James, you reckon you could, you know, you get in Houston, you reckon you could get Waco on that thing? I used to live in Waco." Paul hadn't really caught on the difference between a slideshow and a TV set. That's right. Well, there's other stories about Paul Maxwell. I'll tell you one later about when he was marshal.